So, should we bring in the closer? And
I think it'd be a good time for that.
All right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 62 of the Free Baseball Podcast presented by the Athletes Hub. As Jake fixes audio because I can hear myself, I hate Jake Crumpler. It's me, Davis Bird. As always, joined by Menace to Society, Jake Crumpler. Here to talk some baseball and all sorts of things related to baseball. How are you doing, Jake?
I'm chilling. You could hear yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it must be really loud in my ears.
Like I hear some sort of audio. It sounded like me.
Maybe you got an internal. Your internal dialogue is too loud, bro. You got to turn that down.
I don't have a knob for that, I don't think. But anyway, it's episode number 62, and we're going to start off as always with some hot weeks, and we're going to talk about, as always, it's a Rockies pod, so we're talking about a Rockies player. It's Mr. McMahon, Ryan McMahon. This time, not Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Since May 24th, hit 500, 594 on base, 1.115 slug. Pretty good. 7 runs, 4 ding-dong Johnsons worth 1 F4, 12 RBIs. One of the lone bright spots for a Rockies team that are really, really bad this year.
That was a guy on your fantasy team, right?
He was. I dropped him because he sucked, and now he's good. I hate
nice.
man.
You must be really good at fantasy.
You streamed him twice, and he went over 4 both times.
Come on, man! Don't call me out like that.
Hold that.
Yeah, he's having an interesting year. I think he's like selling out for power, is what it is, and I think he finally got some like BABIP luck this past month. His FanGraphs page is all over the place. It's like, all right, career high strikeout rate, 31% strikeout rate, career high walk rate at 11%. Also, career high WRC plus somehow, though, with those plate discipline metrics, and then a 347 BABIP while batting 254. What is going on there? And then you go look at his StatCast metrics, and it's like, oh man, all right, now he's hitting the ball better than ever. Highest career barrel rate at 13.5%. He's got highest career hard hit rate at 50%. His XBA is below his average because of that crazy BABIP. But then his X slug is right with the slug because he's got these increased barrel numbers. But then he's playing in Coors, and it's like, where does this all land? It's like all over the place. I do not know what is the real Ryan McMahon right now. Is it these full season numbers? Is it his career averages? Is it this past week where he was going off, or was this just sort of evening things out in terms of StatCast and playing in Coors or whatnot? It's all over the place. I think he's going to end up being regular Ryan McMahon, 20 home runs and like a 250 batting average. Playing in Coors, it's pretty boring, but he was on fire this past week, hitting 500 for a week and being worth a full point of WAR is crazy. And the funny part is after that 1.0 F4, he's now 0.9 F4 for the season.
Yeah, that's so sick. He hit all 4 of those home runs over the last week in a 4-game stretch. 3 against the Mets and 1 against the Diamondbacks. The crazy part is one of the games he had the best. He went 4 for 5, 3 RBIs, solo shot, or he hit the home run. He went 4 for 5 in Arizona, not in Coors. So his best performance of the past week was not in Coors. Did you know that Ryan McMahon at his big extension, since he got the huge 6-year extension the past offseason, he can opt out in a year from 2022 to 2020. I think it's 2024. If he gets a top 5 MVP finish. Maybe he really hates it in Colorado and he's just trying like MLB The Show, Road to the Show style. He's swinging at everything, trying to hit a gajillion home runs to get that MVP finish.
He's getting 0 MVP votes, and I'll bet $100,000 on that.
I'd vote for him just so he would be able to leave the Rockies and play for a real.
All right, you got to start writing some articles if you want to be part of the BBWAA.
I don't want to do that. Anyway, other hot week is Miles Michaelis. We were talking about him before the podcast because of his excellent mustache on his fantasy picture on the ESPN Fantasy app. But against the Reds on the 25th, he went 7 innings pitched, gave up 5 hits, no runs, no walks, 5 Ks, just 5 whiffs though. What was good for a 27% call strikes plus whiffs percentage. And then he followed that up by tormenting the Royals to the tune of 8 innings pitched, 3 hits given up, just 1 walk, no earned. Again, 10 Ks, 14 whiffs this time. A good 39% called strikes plus whiffs percentage, which is firmly in the elite category. Michaelis, not a huge swing and miss guy, but 10 Ks, bunch of whiffs against the Royals. Had it working.
Yeah. I think this is just sort of how Michaelis goes as like a sort of a boring starting pitcher. The term that Nick Pollock uses of pitcher list, he calls them Tobies, where they're just guys with subpar strikeout rates that do good at, I don't know, inducing weak contact or just working around batters. I don't know. They're good at like getting ground balls. He is good at none of that, but somehow is good because he doesn't walk guys and doesn't allow a lot of home runs. And I think that's fine. Like he's just a boring pitcher, but he's like serviceable. He's a good major league starting pitcher and he can eat some innings. And we saw that. He had a couple easy matchups. Pitching in Cincinnati is never easy, but that lineup is far from scary. And he got pretty lucky, as you said, 5 whiffs and 27% CSW is nothing that you're going to get excited about. But in Kansas City, he was going off. I think he had a pretty good feel of his whole arsenal, as he had at least 4 whiffs with his slider, his 4-seamer, and his curveball, while his sinker was doing a good job of getting strikes in the zone, 13 called strikes. So that's like the ideal with Mikolas, is that his other pitches sort of get whiffs while the sinker gets called strikes. And called strikes on sinkers are one of the least sticky metrics, right? So it's like from start to start, if you're getting a lot of called strike sinkers, that's a lucky thing. That's not something that's going to carry over. So that was definitely just a good night, especially you're facing Kansas City. They sort of suck. But yeah, nothing special. Do you want to guess Miles Mikolas' middle name?
I hope it also starts with an M.
Starts with a T. And it rhymes with something you say after 69.
Tice.
Yes, sir.
Miles Tice,
Sick.
Michael.
Yeah, pretty
Mikolas.
sick. Miles, more like Miles enticing. All right, never mind. That was awful.
Yeah, that was rough. That was rough. But what wasn't rough was also the performance from the players of the week as of the 27th of May. And on the AL side, after a really, really rough start to the season, is Julio Rodriguez, who just couldn't stop homering over that week. And then in the NL side, it was a toss-up between Matt McClain and Jake Myers.
Yeah, I for that latter part, I don't know. I think MLB.com is broken. Jake Myers plays for the American League Houston Astros, and pretty sure was
Maybe
not
they
even
maybe
playing.
they reclassified, but still, J-Rod and Matt McClain are the two that definitely did deserve it. Matt McClain, rookie sensation, 5-tool guy, really good.
Yeah, McLean's really interesting. He was sort of like a lower ranked prospect in terms of like the overall scope of the top 100. He was at the latter half, close to 100, which is weird because he was pretty hyped. He was a 17th overall pick in 2021, and it's not like he's been bad since being in the minors. He was a little bit underwhelming in 2022 as he batted just 232, but he had 17 homers and 27 steals. That's showing some elite tools there. And then at AAA this year, in just 38 games, he was going off. He batted 348 with 12 homers and 10 steals, and he cut down his strikeout rate almost 10 full percentage points. So he was really proving that, you know, he was a legit worthy of that top 100, that top first round selection. And since reaching the majors, he just won't stop hitting. We're not seeing the same plate discipline metrics, but he's batting 357. He's got a couple homers and a steal. There is like zero possibility this sticks. I don't know if you're looking at it. What do you think his BABIP is?
It's got to be high. I'm going to guess it's probably in the 4s.
It is
let's go 410.
Even 500.
Really? Yeah, that's not sustainable in the slightest.
Half of his balls in play are going for hits. So yeah, he's been pretty lucky so far this year. I think he's going to be a pretty good guy. Not in terms of his personality, but in terms of his baseball playing skills. But right now he's definitely getting a little bit lucky. So if he is on your fantasy team like me, it might be time to trade him while his stock is at its highest. I've made that mistake with a few guys not trading them while they've got high stock. So if anybody from the fantasy league is watching, Matt McClain's going to be sick. You should try to trade for him. You should give me Mike Trout or something.
Yeah, he's really good. On the flip side, in the AL side, we talked a little bit about J-Rod. Julio Rodriguez was one of the really he's one of the brightest young stars of the game, especially after last season. that super strong rookie campaign, and then he really hit the sophomore slump super hard. Started off the season really, really, really poorly. Ask me how I know. It's because I drafted him with my first pick in the same fantasy draft as Jake talking about. But he really heated up against the Pirates and then and against the Yankees, just finally finding that home run stroke again. He's still been stealing bags when he's getting on base. So like he's still, I think he's around like 10 steals and 9 home runs or something like that. I think I have that flip flop. I think he's got 10 home runs and 9 steals.
Correct.
But he's been really good over the last few weeks, and positive signs are still there for J-Rod to sort of return to form as a potential, maybe not a 40-40 guy this year, but maybe a 30-30 guy.
Yeah, no, he's definitely getting back on track. I think it was a little bit of bad luck early on too, because if you look at his StatCast metrics, he's underperforming across the board. His BABIP is below 300, which last year was at 345. And with a guy that hits the ball as hard as he does, with the amount of speed that he has, you're bound to have a BABIP above like 320 or so. So there's definitely a lot of room for improvement, and I think this is just the start of it. I think we're going to see a really hot summer from Julio.
Absolutely. And do you want to do the All-Star ballots now, or do you want to do our monthly review and do that last?
All-Star ballots.
Okay. So the All-Star game is coming up soon, but we're going to do our really, really early ballots since they have just posted them, ready to do on MLB.com. So let's run through and we'll give our picks for each position.
Sure.
Starting off. Do you have it pulled up?
I do.
Wonderful.
Do you have it pulled up?
I do. I will let you go first.
Let's go. All right.
For first base.
American League first base, I think, is super easy. It's clearly Jose Abreu. I'm joking.
Yeah, he's really good.
No, I think it's Yandy Diaz. He's been just so great. I'm loving that he's finally finding that power stroke. I mean, he was already one of the best hitters in baseball, and now he's hitting for power, and it just makes him so good. I think honorable mention goes to like Anthony Rizzo, who's been pretty good, but mostly thanks to BABIP, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is eternally goated. So, but still, I think Yandy with those biceps are worthy of a all-star selection at first base in the American League.
Absolutely. I also had Yandy, and I really didn't even think about anybody else. Rizzo sort of crossed my mind, but as soon as I saw Yandy, I clicked it. I went back to look at it to make sure, but no, it's not moving for me.
Yeah. And then first base in the NL is pretty difficult because you have Pete Alonso. He's leading the majors in homers. He's got 20. And there's a couple other guys that are having pretty solid season. Like you got Goldie, who's like following up his MVP season pretty well. Matt Olson is hitting a lot of home runs. And then there's a bunch of like other guys that are pretty good. Lamont Wade Jr. is probably not all-star caliber, but he's still been good. But then you have the real guy who I think goes up really well against Pete Alonso, and that's Freddie Freeman. He's batting 346 with 10 home runs, and that's really incredible. He's got a 1,008 OPS for the season, while Pete's at 890. Though the tiebreaker for me is pretty clear. Freddie Freeman's on the Dodgers, and there's no way I'm voting a Dodger to the All-Star game. So I'm going Pete Alonso. He's leading the majors in home runs.
If you remember from our way too early predictions article, I had Pete Alonso as the NL MVP, and I'm going to stick to my guns. I think he's going to have a huge second half, even bigger than his first half so far with 20 home runs. I think the average is going to go up a lot too, because he's due. You ever watched Phineas and Ferb?
Yes, I've watched Phineas and Ferb.
The doof is due for Pete Alonso, and
yeah, he's got a 210 BABIP right now.
Yeah, he's getting really unlucky. He's hitting the ball super hard, like he always does, because he's Pete Alonso. He's got 20 home runs. I think he'll probably end up hitting 50 home runs again. I just think if the average goes up, drives in more RBI, drives in more runs, just because that's the old-fashioned Chud stat. I really would favor him to still win MVP.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we will move on to the second base position. Who do you have here on the AL side?
Honestly, it is slim pickings. I think there's some good choices. I think Whit Merrifield has been pretty surprising this year. I think if we didn't have the top two front runners, that he would be like the clear number 3 here. Second base in the AL is pretty empty, especially with Altuve having such a small sample. But we've got I think it's between Marcus Semien and Gleyber Torres, and I think it's pretty clear between those two. Gleyber's been really good, and I think he's the clear number 2. But Marcus Semien has just been incredible this year. He's got 8 homers. He's batting 295. He's stealing bases. He's leading the best offense in baseball in Texas right now, and so I think he's pretty clear AL second base all-star selection.
Yeah, I also went with Semien. The Rangers are really good. I think at one point he was leading in RBI if he's not still doing so in the AL. He's been really good, and it feels like Simeon has perennially been underrated. Like until people start to like figure out, oh yeah, Simeon's really good, and then he'll sort of fall back down to earth, back to underrated, and then he'll just continue to produce from there. And he's just done that with the Rangers. He's a huge contract, and no one talks about him. It's just one of the most underrated stars of the game.
Yeah, he's really living up to that contract. And then in the National League, I think it's very contrasting to the American League where you have so many options. I think there is one that most people will be voting for, but there's lots of guys here having great seasons. I think Bryson Stott, underrated, having a great season, not probably all-star caliber, but still doing pretty well. Ketel Marte has really bounced back this year. Jonathan India also bouncing back. Nico Horner's been really good, especially in our fantasy league. And then you've got guys like Tyro Estrada doing well and Ozzy Albies being Ozzy Albies. But I think the clear front runner, which is crazy to say with all of those guys in the running, you got Luis Arias batting freaking 381 right now. I don't care that he only has one home run. That guy's the best contact hitter in all of baseball.
Yeah, I obviously went with the homer pick, and I said Nico Horner, who was one of, if not the best second baseman, along with Arias, until he got hurt. He missed a little bit of time because of the injury, but I feel like by the time the All-Star game is going to roll around, I think he'll pick up a little bit of that slack, as you've seen that he's already done. Again, 12 steals, got 4 home runs. He's hitting 284 now. He's a Gold Glover level short, like he's a Gold Glove shortstop that plays second base. So he's dipping into those power numbers a little bit too. I would go with Horner. I know it's a homer pick, but Arias was probably my second pick. Gorman has also got a really good case just because he's hitting for so much power. Mm-hmm. He's doing really, really well. Unfortunately, he plays for the Cardinals, but yeah, I mean, any of those 3 guys, but I'm going to go with Horner.
Yeah, if I'm allowed to vote against a Dodger, you're allowed to vote for a Cub. And then at third base, I think this is a position that is generally stacked. And then this year, we've got so many well-known names that are underperforming on both sides in the American League and the National League. So I think that sets up a pretty interesting race. In terms of the guys that are sort of underperforming, Anthony Rendon forgot how to hit home runs. Jose Ramirez has sort of had a quiet first half. Rafael Devers has been pretty unlucky in terms of batting average, or in terms of BABIP, and Alex Bregman has really fallen off. So I think that leaves, surprisingly, Matt Chapman, who probably got off to the hottest start in baseball in April, and then your boy Josh Young, who's been going off this year, surprisingly batting 295 with 12 home runs. I mean, across the board, he's got better numbers than Chapman, which is impressive.
Oh, just soak it in. Soak it in, Jake. I was right. I was right about Josh Young.
I was very wrong.
He's good. I knew he was going to be good. I totally didn't second guess myself on it at all once ever. Josh Young, you already know who I picked. It was him. Yeah. It had to be him.
I think if we're factoring in defense a little more, I think I would go with Chapman. But
he's a much better defender. But Josh Young, to be fair, is not that bad of a defender. He's a pretty decent defender. It's just not – he's not – Matt Chapman Platinum Glove defender.
Yeah. So I'm going with Chapman for the defensive, but there is a very legitimate argument that Young has been, well, he has definitely been better on the offensive end. So I think there's sort of like a trade-off there. And then in the National League, it's sort of the same thing. You got Nolan Arenado underperforming. You got like younger guys that you would expect to have big seasons like Brett Beatty and Alec Boehm not living up to the hype. Same with like Brian Hayes. Manny Machado's been pretty up and down. Ryan McMahon, not great. Max Muncy quietly hitting 17 home runs. Austin Riley's not been great. So there's not a clear front runner here. It's almost like, is JD Davis the best offensive option here? There's a lot of options and none of them are really enticing. I feel like Muncy might be the best option, but like I said, I'm not voting for a Dodger.
I will. I went for Max Muncy. I think as much as I really wanted to vote for somebody else, the pickings were so slim. Like I debated a little bit with JD Davis. I looked at Max Muncy. Riley has had a down season. I also looked at a little bit about Patrick Wisdom, who's been a better defender than Max Muncy, but not by a whole lot. So, and obviously still has a strikeout issue. I went with Muncy just because he feels like the best of this pretty pretty terrible bunch.
I'm going with JD Davis. I got to do a homer pick here, and I think that it's
That's
like
fair.
a fair homer pick.
Very fair. Very fair. I mulled over with him too. I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, sure. But I kind of figured you would go with it. So I didn't want to steal your thunder.
What's that on your finger?
Hmm?
You married, bro? What the heck?
Yeah, this is my wedding ring. My wife gave me. It's
Dang,
pretty
what
sweet.
the hell?
It's pretty sweet, brother. Yeah, but for that, I think I had to go with Max Muncy. And then who did you have for shortstop in the American League?
Yeah, it's a lot of fast guys, a lot of injured guys, a lot of young guys, and a lot of I think there's two very clear options. Bo Bichette has been incredible offensively, batting .335 with 11 homers, and then Wander Franco sort of also batting .298 with 7 home runs, but he's been stealing bases like crazy. That one, I would love to sort of look more into the underlying metrics. But I mean, based off just the stuff that they're offering on the app, which is just average home runs, RBI, and OPS, Bichette is the winner across the board. So I don't know. Do I go with Bichette there, or do I factor in steals more?
I don't know. I think it's difficult. Personally, on my end, I went with Bo. He's been hitting like Bo Bichette. Really good. I know he's a miserable defender, but the bat is so good. It's hard for me to keep him out.
Yeah. Wander's got a slight edge in WAR 0.3, which is pretty much nothing, but he does have 20 stolen bases to Bichette's 2, and Wander's a better fielder. So I'm going with Wander there, but that is like a really close bet there. Both of them are having incredible seasons.
Very fair. And who did you have on the NL side? Because this one felt also sort of like the third base pick for me. It feels like most of the shortstops, outside of one that I really didn't want to pick, that the NL shortstops have just not been very good. I mean, Bogarts has had a decent start, but he hasn't been super great. And he still feels like the best of this bunch. Lindor has been fine, but not great either. He's not living up to that contract. Willy Adames has been a huge disappointment. Dansby Swanson has been hitting, but the power numbers haven't been there. He's only got 5 home runs and a couple doubles. Trey Turner's been pretty bad. So I mean, who did you have on the NL side shortstop?
I don't even know. This is honestly like the worst pickings. It's crazy that Geraldo Perdomo might be the best hitter here, but he's been really lucky this year. But I think here sometimes it's like, I don't know, the small samples and stuff can take away. So it's like, I don't know, you look at who was I just looking at like 1 second ago? Orlando Arcia. I think if he had not been injured for a while, that would be a guy that I would consider. And Matt McClain, really good so far, but he's played like a week. So
yeah,
I think I'm going to go with Lindor. I think he's been better than Bogarts. I think Bogarts is actually a better fielder than Lindor now, but Lindor's got the home runs on him. The Mets have been better than the Padres. Have they? Am I just talking out of my ass? But yeah, I think I'm going to go with Lindor there. I think he's deserving. He's got that longevity too.
I went with Dansby Swanson. I know that's a homer pick, but he has more WAR than Lindor, and it's he's been hitting better than Bogarts. He's hitting .265, 5 homers. He's got a couple extra base hits. He's been the best. I think he's been the best by WRC plus of the shortstops that were signed in the offseason. And he's been worth over 2 WAR already. I went with Swanson just because the pickings were so slim.
Yeah, the Mets are better than the Padres. So I guess if we're doing like the old school chud thing of factoring in team performance, then I'll give the edge to Lindor. I hate, that's my least favorite position so far. That was terrible.
Yeah, it's not great, but I feel like we're going to beat it here in a little bit. So let's go to catcher. I think these are pretty cut and dry, but I'd like to hear who you have from the AL side.
I mean, yeah, you got 2 options in the AL. You got Salvador Perez and you got Adley Rutschman, and I think I'm going to be voting for Adley Rutschman because he's the guy. He's the man.
Well, I will be joining you on the Adley train because that is exactly who I voted for. Now, on the NL side, who did you vote for? Because I think this one's the most obvious of any pick that we've had so far.
Wilson Contreras, the meme lord. No. Yeah, it's our boy, former A's rep Sean Murphy has been the clear best catcher in baseball offensively, and yeah, it's great to see. I'm glad he's out of the miserable franchise of Oakland and succeeding in Atlanta.
Absolutely. That's who I voted for as well. And there's not really any other options that really pose a threat. I mean, Elias Diaz has been good, but he plays in Coors. So, I mean, it's not like a crazy thing. And then Will Smith has been good, but he has not been anywhere close to as good as Sean Murphy. And
Mm-hmm.
then outfield, I think this one on the AL side is really hard, and on the or
Mm-hmm.
like it's really hard for one reason, and it's the depth of talent. And on the
Yeah.
NL side, it's difficult for me to pick just because
Oh.
there's like only like four guys that are really really great right now
Mm-hmm.
and have
Yeah.
been
Oh my God.
consistently playing.
There's so many guys in the AL. I don't think I could choose six guys that
Yeah,
that are worthy here.
it's really tough for me.
That's
I have
crazy.
my three, and I sort of agonized over it a little bit. But there is one guy that I really want to include as an honorable mention. Um, but who do you have?
I don't know. I really want to choose Masataka Yoshida because I like him.
Hmm.
I feel like you can't not vote for Mike Trout. And then, I mean, Aaron Judge has been like the best hitter in baseball since coming back from the IL. So I feel like those are the three, but it's like there's so many options. I could choose three more that I would feel just as good about. Who are your three?
Interestingly enough, you said a couple names that I don't have on my list. So,
Wow.
yeah, mine, you don't have to look too far if you actually look at the thing. The top two, Jordan Alvarez, Randy
Mhm.
Arozarena.
Yep.
I have both of those guys. They've been really, really good. I also have both of them on my fantasy team, so I'm a little bit biased. But Randy has sort of parlayed his success from previous postseasons
And the
and at the World Base
WBC.
and the
Yep.
WBC, and he has been gassed this year.
Yes, he has.
11 home runs. He's hitting just a shade under 300. He's still a good defender. 40 RBIs, 6 steals for a Rays team that's just a buzzsaw offensively. They're
Mhm.
really, really good. Jordan Alvarez is Jordan. We don't really need to talk about it. When he's healthy, he's the top two hitter in baseball. I'd have to think top two, top three. He is really good. And I do have Aaron Judge because he's just been so good. And he's been so quietly good because I feel like everyone expected him to be like, at 60 home runs by now, which of course
As
is
many
very
home runs as he had in his first 46 games last year.
I know, but it feels like there's absolutely no fanfare about it like there was last year.
Yeah.
Aaron Judge is excellent. There's obviously a couple of honorable mentions to throw in there. Mike Trout, I really thought about throwing him in here. I really thought about throwing in Adolis Garcia as well.
Mhm.
He's been very good. And then one that's insanely underrated, and he honestly dropped off of my list, specifically just because he platoons more often than not, is Josh Lowe, also on the
Yep.
Rays.
Yep.
He has been really, really good.
Mhm.
He is already at 11 home runs, 37 RBIs. He's got 13 steals. The K rate's down from last year. He's hitting 300. He's everything they really wanted him to be and more. He is
Mhm.
insanely good. But
And I
he
think
really only plays against righties and kind of soft tossing lefties. He doesn't
yeah.
face lefties that much. The Rays platoon a lot, sort of like the Giants.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, you can only like play against the guys you're putting the lineup against, and
Mhm.
I think there's even further honorable mentions out of those guys. I
Oh
think
yeah,
Jared Kelnick's been really great this year.
that's a good one.
Uh, Cedric Mullins has been pretty quietly amazing. I think Luis
Mhm.
Roberts had a really good season as well. Jose Siri somehow
He
has
homered
been
today.
pretty great, and then there's just like so many guys that are like deserving of that sort of honorable selection just by being great in the past few seasons. But yeah, we can skip over those. But I
If
think
you
there's so many options here.
if you really wanted to include everybody from a specific team too, I mean, I think he deserves an honorable mention, although he's not hitting super well. Esteury Ruiz has been a very good defensive
Hmm.
center fielder, and he leads all of baseball in
Yep.
steals.
Yes, sir.
So I think that this one is so loaded. And then you go look at the NL side, and it's like, oh, there's like five guys. At least for me, it was like five guys to really pick from. And I
Mhm.
still haven't even completely picked all of mine. So who do you have on the NL side?
Well, I was just scrolling through, and Lourdes Gurriel has a 915 OPS since
Mhm.
when? What the heck? That's crazy.
Since right now, apparently.
True. Yeah, I think there are a lot of like mid-tier options, which would
Mhm.
be like pretty good. Like I think Brian Reynolds sort of fits that mold where he's like not clearly an all-star, but he's probably worthy of a little bit of selection. And then there's some guys that are sort of like quietly doing their thing where it's like they're underperforming in some people's eyes. I mean, Tatis has had a slow start, but I mean, even like Juan Soto, he's got a 924 OPS, but I don't think people are like, oh my God, Juan Soto, like clear all-star. I feel like it's easily Ronald Acuna is number one, right? I think Mookie Betts deserves that every year, the selection. I mean, he's been really good this year, not to his standards, but I think he always deserves one, even as a Dodger. And then it's like, all right, we got some guys, and I feel like I'm just going to stick to the top and go with Corbin Carroll because he's been so great this year. And then you throw in the steals as well, and playing for a team that's really outperforming expectations. I feel like that's a good choice, but like I said, there are a couple other guys where it's like they're either mid-tier or they're just like quietly underperforming, and that's like Juan Soto really deserves a lot more love than he's been getting.
Yeah, I think our picks are very similar. I've got Ronald Acuna Jr. Obviously, he's just been back to his usual self. He's been really good. Mookie Betts, I think Mookie's still Mookie Betts. It's tough to shy away from him. He's still always going to be in that conversation if he's healthy. And Corbin Carroll. I considered doing Juan Soto, but I would like to show some love to Corbin Carroll because I think he really deserves it. It was a toss up between him. I had Soto, and then the more I looked at Carroll, I was like, I would really like to have Carroll in there instead.
Did you choose Mookie?
Yeah, I had Ronald, Mookie, and Carroll.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty fair. And then there's only one more position because for whatever reason, I don't think it lets you vote for pitchers.
Nope.
It's the designated hitter. And there's some guys on the AL side, not a lot of great ones, but some names in here. And then there's one that I think was an easy one to pick for me. But I already know who you're going to pick. So
if you didn't vote, if Shohei wasn't here, who would you vote for?
Brent Rooker.
All right. Yeah, me too.
And for that reason, and also because Shohei Ohtani, I think, is going to get
as a pitcher.
Pick. He's going to get picked as a pitcher. I went with Brent Rooker. So
let's go. Jake Burger.
Yeah, Jake Burger's been really good, but Jake Burger also missed some time due to injury, and that kind of swayed it for me. Jake Burger also a designated hitter. It feels like he's played more third base because Moncada has been out. So I feel like that's also a little unfair to be like, oh yeah, here's your spot at DH. I went with Rooker.
And what about the National League? I think there's a couple options. I mean, you got your guy, and there's also a guy on the Dodgers, and then there's a big home run guy.
Who do you think my guy is?
I mean, he's on your team, Christopher Morel.
I want as much as I want to vote for Morel. And right now, I honestly think the Cubs will only get the one All-Star selection, but I think it's going to be on the pitching side. I don't think I would even vote for Morel, but I would vote. I would vote for a former Cub, and that's exactly what I did. And I voted for Georgie Sunshine, Jorge Soler.
Yes, he was a former Cub.
Yes, he was. He got traded to the Royals.
In what trade? Wade Davis?
Yep. Wade Davis trade.
Wow. I forgot Soler was a Cub. I am also picking Soler. He's banging this year. Yeah. So that rounds out our picks. I mean, we just spent like 20 minutes on that, so I don't think it's worth it to run back through them. But yeah, that'll be our first one. We can revisit this in like a month or so. I mean, we're like a month and a half right now away from the All-Star game, so we'll have more than enough time to do this again, and also to have very different picks because we've literally played 2 months. We're a third of the way through the season, and we got a whole another sixth of the season left before we're even into the month of the All-Star game.
Absolutely. We can revisit that, in the month reviews, I guess, which we can do right now and review the month of May. Starting with the league leaders in average from the AL, kind of a guy here, and it's Leody Taveras of the Texas Rangers, hitting 374 and playing a pretty nifty little center field there. But also joined by Freddie Freeman. We talked about him. That guy just rigs. He's hitting just a shade under 400, 396.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing a lot of Freddie Freeman on here. I think he really had a huge month of May, but Leody deserves his time. He had a very quiet month. I didn't even know he was going off so much, but it's clearly a product of BABIP, which Usually average is a product of BABIP, especially high ones. And yeah, I think it's cool to see Leote doing what he's doing, because he's always been a guy that sort of has all the tools, but just didn't have the plate discipline. He's got his strikeout rate down to 21%, which is something that you like to see there. And I think that'll help him a lot. He's a great fielder and center. He's really fast. He's got a little bit of pop as well. And while his barrel rate and his StatCast metrics aren't great, I think with that speed, he can sort of hold a pretty high BABIP. He's going to be like an average speed and defense guy. And I think that's great to see him going off. And I mean, that was probably one of the most surprising names I saw to bat 374 for a whole month is pretty interesting. He's going to have a dope card in MLB The Show.
Oh, yeah, he is. Freddie Freeman is too, and he'll be joined on this next category. But Freddie Freeman, we talked about Arias hitting 381. If Freddie Freeman has another month even remotely close to this, he could potentially join Arias in the chase to try to hit 400. He's hitting like 344, 345 right now, and he's still been hot to end the month, which is even crazier. And we'll see him again right here too as we go to the runs leaders for the month, and it's in the AL. Two guys we talked about with our all-star picks, and it's Aaron Judge and Marcus Semien, both with 23, but they get paced, of course, by Mr. Freeman with 26, 3 runs ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, is Freddie Freeman ever going to slow down? He's like such a clear Hall of Famer now. It's pretty bonkers. But yeah, that's going to be fun to look at his career once it comes to a close in probably 7 years or so. But yeah, Marcus Semien, we spoke about him. Aaron Judge hit a lot of home runs this month. That's about it. But Semien's been really interesting this year. I mean, he's got the best plate discipline we've seen from him since 2019, his breakout season. And yeah, I mean, it's cool to see him doing what he's been doing. I mean, ever since that breakout season, I still don't know what he did to reach that level, but he's just been so good since then. And just over the past few years, he's been one of the best hitters in baseball in general. He's had some down moments. I mean, we saw him struggle in 2020, and last year he got off to a really slow start, but he turned it around in the second half. But now he got off to a fast start, and it's carrying over. He's got a 134 WRC plus, which is just about at the level of his career high from 2019. And remember, he's got the record for most home runs by a second baseman. But yeah, it's great to see him. I mean, batting on top of the best lineup in baseball will usually lead to scoring the most runs.
Absolutely. He's worth 2.5 WAR so far this season, which is over half of his last season total, 4.2. So yeah, I mean, he could potentially have another huge season if he continues this pace. And then Freddie Freeman, I mean, what's there really to say? He's not only an excellent contact hitter, he's a good run producer, he gets on base, and the Dodgers are a great offense, so he scores. Go figure. I mean, he's just the rich get richer here with Freddie Freeman. Mm-hmm. And home runs, you talked about it. Aaron Judge hit a cajillion home runs this month. He hit 12, but joined by the guy that I had for All-Star DH, Jorge Soler, who started off so slow. He started off insanely slow in Miami, and he's got 12 home runs over a month. I feel he had a huge stretch where he had homered in like 4 games in a row, and then he missed, like, he'd go 1 game without it, and then he'd do it again. Like, he hit them all in bunches, and he's just turned into one of the game's premier power hitters again.
Yeah, I mean, he's long been one of the game's premier power hitters, but he's sort of like really streaky because of his swing and miss. But he's really cut back on that this year. I mean, it's easy to forget that he hit 48 home runs in 2019 to set the record for the Royals, and that's the bouncy ball year. But I think this is a guy that like clearly will always have 40 home run power if he can stay healthy. He's already got more home runs than he had last year in almost 20 fewer games, which is pretty crazy. And the StatCast metrics back it all up. He's got the highest barrel rate of his career. He's underperforming across the board. So I mean, this could hold for a while, but I mean, 12 home runs in a month is no joke. Over a full season, 12 times 6 is 72. So dang, can't even reach Barry Bonds with that pace. That's crazy. Yeah, but really incredible month from Jorge Soler. He hit 5 home runs in the first month and then followed it up with 12 in the second month. Great to see him going. I think he's fun to watch in general. I mean, I think his most memorable moment was that home run in the World Series that still hasn't landed. Yeah. And yeah, it's great to see him doing what he's been doing, because he sort of made the Marlins look stupid last year after signing that contract, and now he's living up to the money that he was paid.
Absolutely. I love Jorge Soler. Obviously, he was former Cub. So I always like seeing him succeed. That's my boy right there. I love me some Georgie Sunshine. Go to RBI leaders. And then, hey, it's a couple guys we've already talked about. AL
Mhm.
leader for RBI over the month is Aaron Judge with 25. And he gets beat out by a guy we've also talked about, Freddie Freeman, 26.
Yeah.
Talked about him scoring the most runs, 26. Drove in the most runs, also 26.
Yeah, it's crazy what Judge is doing though, because I mean, last year was so incredible, and he's surpassed it in all of the Statcast metrics right now. He's got career highs across the board, which is sort of scary. He, as long as he can stay healthy, which we've already seen him hit the IL, it's going to be another historic season from Judge. And at this rate, you know, I mean, he's really on pace to be a Hall of Famer as well, and it's cool to see. I think the only concern right now is he's striking out a lot more than he has the past couple of years. He got his K rate down to like 25% the past couple of years, and now he's a lot closer to 30%, which is not ideal. But with the way that he impacts the ball, I think it's going to be a really scary summer for pitchers facing the Yankees.
Absolutely. Aaron Judge, I do think he's on a Hall of Fame trajectory, which is so weird because he feels like an older guy. I mean, he is
Yeah.
31.
Mhm.
But you can look at him and like, I don't know. He just never, he didn't originally like scream like, oh yeah, this is a guy that has a chance at the Hall of Fame. And then you look at like, I know it's B-War. You look at his B-War page, he's right on 40 WAR.
Mhm.
He's right on 40 WAR in what, like 6 seasons?
Yeah.
This is his 7th season. Is that
Yeah.
right?
That's
7th full season?
pretty solid.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. This is his 8th. Well,
8th
full
season.
season, I guess, is 7th.
Yeah. So seven full seasons, and he's on 40 WAR. He's probably going to make the Hall of Fame if he continues remotely at this trajectory, which
Mhm.
is just wild to think about. And you said Freddie Freeman too. This is another guy that I feel like was going to be originally like maybe a Hall of Very Good, and now it's pretty much locked up. Like, yeah, this guy's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, it's like sort of what Goldschmidt's doing in his
Mhm.
30s. Yeah.
Exactly the same thing. Just feels like a Hall of Famer.
Mhm.
And then some guys to follow this, steals. Of course, there's the new larger bases, and the pitch clock has aided in it. I think one of the big things too that has helped steals go up is the rule that pitchers can't throw over, but they can throw over 2 times for free. On the 3rd time, they have to get them, or the runner gets to advance, which is a huge rule. And we've seen steals fly up because of the new rules. And then we're going to get to see the steals leaders for the month. And it felt like in the past, we're talking about like 6, 7, like 8. And then here you go. Ronald Acuna, he's got 9. Okay, that's really high. Yeah, Esteury Ruiz has 16 in a month,
Yeah.
which is crazy. He's up to 27 on year now, 11 in the first month, and then exploding for 16. And I think it's because the average has sort of crept up. He doesn't hit for any power at all whatsoever.
0.
But if he gets on base, he will steal. He had like 80 something steals in the minors last year.
Mhm.
Like he's a base stealing machine.
Yeah, this was the guy that my brother said preseason that would steal the most bases, and as soon as he said it, I was like, "Yeah, that is right. Yeah, he's going to do that." I mean, the 80 stolen bases, was it 80? Is a 48, 70, 85. Holy moly, that's crazy. Yeah, he is definitely a stolen base demon, and as long as he's getting on base, that's fine. He does not walk. He walks 4% of the time, but he doesn't strike out, so he's sort of just making contact and beating it out, and that works, especially for a guy as fast as he is. And then when he gets on base, he's stealing. But like you said, no power. He sort of sucks in center field too, despite being as fast as he is. So he really, the only thing he's providing right now is speed. But, I don't think the A's really care about winning right now, though they did win a series against the lowly Braves.
I walked him off.
Yeah. Sorry about it. But yeah, Esteury Ruiz is really funny, or really fun to watch when he reaches base.
Yeah, that's my boy. That he's on my fantasy team. I really love Esteury Ruiz. That's my guy. Yeah, and then Ronald Acuna's got 9. I mean, he feels like he's on track to be a 30-30 guy at like bare minimum.
Yeah.
Like, he's a freak. He's just so good.
Yeah, I could see him doing like I think he's going to do like a 30-50.
I could see that. I could see that, and I think that's fair. He's up to 11 home runs on the season, 22 steals, a paltry 22 steals compared to Esteury Ruiz's mammoth 27, which is, of course, very, very sarcastic. Ronald Acuna Jr. is one of the game's premier still power speed threats.
Yes, he is.
Just wonderful to watch that guy play baseball. Glad he's healthy again. OPS leaders. Hey, I know these guys. Aaron Judge led all of baseball OPS over the month of May with a 1.402 OPS. And then Freddie Freeman's a bum. He had a 1.186 compared to Aaron Judge. Talked enough about those guys. We can skip it until we go to the F4 part. And they both got 2.1 F4. Same guys, Aaron Judge, Freddie Freeman.
Yep. I mean,
Real
I think
good.
it's going to be pretty clear who the players of the month in the American League and National League are going to be for May.
Absolutely. And then we can go talk about pitcher wins, which, of course, are the one thing that show pitcher is good or not if they win, which is also, of course, extremely sarcastic. But I get to talk about my favorite baseball player of all time in the AL. So all these guys have 4 wins. You have John Gray of the Texas Rangers. You have Zach Eflin, marquee signing for the Tampa Bay Rays in the offseason. Christian Javier, who I think everyone expected to be very good this season. And then the greatest pitcher in all of baseball history, also the Texas Rangers, Nathan Eovaldi, with 4. And they're joined in the NL side by Merrill Kelly of the Arizona Diamondbacks, who's been quietly extremely good this year.
Yeah, I think all of these guys have actually had really interesting years. I mean, Merrill Kelly's doing this sort of
He's doing
Merrill Kelly thing.
He's doing the Merrill Kelly thing. He's a total.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys. However, he's at a career high 27% strikeout rate right now. So he's sort of not a Toby anymore.
Zooey mama.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then all the other guys in the AL are like really fun names. I think Christian Javier was like the most wide awake sleeper I've seen in recent years. And he's sort of living up to that. Not at the same rate that he was last year, but he's still been really good. Eflin is doing what we thought the Rays could do with him and just make him a really good pitcher. And then John Gray and Nathan Eovaldi definitely taking advantage of having the best offense and getting a lot of run support. But outside of that, it's like, yeah, I mean, those guys are pretty solid. Gray's slider has been really good. Eovaldi got some velocity back and has just been the complete game shutout master this year. And looking deeper into Merrill Kelly, I don't know. He's sort of just like good across the board. And I think that's helping out. I think he's pitching more outside of the zone, and that's leading to more chases and also more walks. So I don't know. What's better? Less walks or more strikeouts?
I think I would go with less walks.
Yeah.
At least
So
for
he's
a
been
guy
really
like
good.
that. Just allow me really quick to wax lyrical about Nathan Eovaldi because he's not really been a guy that's like taking advantage of his teams doing well, because his worst start of the season came in April, gave up 6. And then since then, no team has touched him for more than 3. He's been a quality start machine, except for his last start. He went 5 innings against the Tigers, which was specifically just because it was on 6 days of rest from him going a complete game shutout a complete game against the Pirates. Nathan Eovaldi's probably been one of the most under the radar, but I think you could probably still say one of the best free agent signings of the entire summer, or the entire offseason, of course. But he's just been really good. I, of course, like to joke around about it because I picked him as my dark horse pick for Cy Young last year, so the last season, because he was very good 2 seasons ago, and he's found it again. His velocity's crept back up. He's just getting a lot of ground ball outs, and he's striking out guys with his breaking balls again, which is very good. And he's really sort of become the ace of that staff, along with John Gray, sort of kind of co-piloting the ship while Jacob deGrom heals up. And Rangers just keep on trucking.
Mm-hmm.
And then for saves, Jake knows both these guys. And it's in the AL, Emmanuel Clase with 8. In the NL for saves is San Francisco Giants closer Camilo Doval.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about Clase. I don't know how he's still leading baseball in saves.
He's not striking anybody out. It's weird.
I know his strikeout rate has dropped more than 10% from last year, which is really bad. It's really unfortunate because he was just like the best reliever in baseball outside of Edwin Diaz. in the past couple of years. And I mean, this precipitous drop off in strikeout rate is really concerning. I'm just waiting for it all to blow up as well. I mean, his whip has not been great. I don't know what it is, to be honest. I don't know if his velocity hasn't fallen off. I'm scared. I have him in our home league, and I'm really scared for when it inevitably blows up. But it sort of has been not the best season for him across the board in terms of ERA and whip. So it's sort of, I don't know. I think maybe he's just mediocre this year, but I think the strikeouts will sort of come back as the season goes on. But I'm pretty concerned, but I'm definitely not concerned with Doval, that he was sort of class A 2.0 before, and now he's sort of class A 1.0, right? He's sort of he switched spots with him. He's been so good this year. He's got a career high strikeout rate. He's up to 36% now, and it's been great to see him because he throws gas, and his primary pitch is a slider that is really good. It's got a 37% CSW, and he's just been incredible this year. I think there was always the question, who's going to close for the Giants? You know, they signed Taylor Rogers. They have other guys there. They're really good at producing relievers. And I guess it was always going to be Doval. He was the closer of the future. And it was sort of the question was there whether or not they were going to let some guy who's 25, be the clear cut closer, but he has been this year, and he's taken advantage, and he is really good. And now he's up to 14 saves on the season, which is tied for second in baseball. And it's really great to see him finally come into his own, because I think this was a guy, based off his stuff, that was clearly going to be one of the best closers in baseball once he got that job full time. And here it is. We're seeing it in May.
Absolutely. And it's nice to see. I always like when young guys really step up into those huge bullpen roles, especially because it just doesn't happen very much. A lot of times you see old guys get like retread thrown into the closer role, and it just doesn't quite work out. Handing over the keys to high leverage spots like this to your young guys is how you really see what they're made of. And Camilo Doval is making the most of it. And the Giants pen, who has been very it feels like they've been rocky just because they have some guys in there that suck, like John Bravia and like Stripling and Mania and like random dudes in there that just don't do anything. And then you've got Doval and Rogers and guys that just get the job done when it matters. Doval, really good. The youngster leading the pack. And then we get to talk about right here, ERA leaders for the month of May in the AL. Nathan Eovaldi, sub 1.96 ERA, but he sucks because Michael Wacha has beaten him with a 0.84 in the NL. Two guys that everyone expected to be here.
No, I don't know how it's happening. I mean, we talked about Eovaldi. I think that's more easily explainable, but what Wacha's doing is ridiculous. It's not like he's striking out a lot more batters. He's had a couple outings this year where he struck out double-digit batters, which he rarely does throughout his entire career. I think he had 2 or 3 outings throughout his whole career where he struck out double-digit batters, and he's already done that twice this year in the first 2 months. But I think he's just getting lucky, to be honest. I think it's just he's getting lucky on balls in play. Right now, his BABIP is 273. That's a little lucky, but I mean, if we're talking about just May,
his xFIP is almost like 4.6.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's just for the whole season. I think for May, it's probably there's probably an even bigger disparity. But yeah, he's been pretty unlucky. I think he's not giving up any home runs too, which is usually lucky for a guy that relies on balls in play a lot. But he's good at inducing soft contact, but he is a fly ball pitcher, so those home runs are going to come. I think right now it was just like a stretch of a month, 6 or so starts where the home runs weren't going. I think he's got a super low ground ball rate. Those fly balls are going to turn into home runs at some point, but you have to commend him for having a really great month of May.
Yeah, his xFIP for the month of May is 4.5 on the dot.
Nice.
For Wacha, which is crazy. But Nathan Eovaldi, I mean, his numbers line up with what he's been doing. So I don't know. One of these guys feels real. One of them feels like what on earth is going on. Same thing here with whip. In the AL, whip leader, Bryce Miller, rookie extraordinaire, one of the best rookie pitchers, if not the best rookie pitcher in baseball right now, joined by Michael Wacha with his .72 whip, beating Bryce Miller because Bryce Miller stinks compared to Michael Wacha, apparently.
Bryce Miller has been incredible. I do have some stats on him from Twitter. No one in the last 100+ years had pitched 30 or more innings in their first 5 MLB starts and not allowed 26 batters to reach base. Bryce Miller through his first 5 starts, 31 and a third innings, 17 base runners allowed. Nobody had allowed fewer than 26, and he allowed 17. It's absolutely ridiculous. He's also the first pitcher since at least 1901 to go 6 or more innings and allow 4 or fewer hits in each of his first 5 career appearances. It's been pretty incredible what he's been doing. And yeah, I have him on my fantasy team, but we talked about him a couple weeks ago. It's that fastball that carries him all the way. And it's been pretty fun to watch. I mean, he's got a 0.75 whip even after being blown up in his last start, right? He got destroyed by the Yankees. It was like, what was it? It was 11 hits and 8 earned runs. He doesn't walk anybody either, so that whip is super low, but 11 hits and he still got the lowest whip. He would have had like a 0.5 or below. He had a 0.5 whip for the whole season before that start. So I think Bryce Miller's for real.
Yeah, I do too. And before that start, it was crazy because the Mariners rotation was very quietly the best in baseball. They had 4 pitchers in the top 20 on F4 alone with Kirby, Gilbert, Castillo, and Miller.
And that's without Robbie Ray.
And that's without Robbie Ray. They had the best rotation in baseball, which is crazy. There's only 3 other teams that had 2 that were in the top 20, which was Texas, Tampa Bay, and Minnesota. So they had effectively four aces. Bryce Miller dropped to F4 just off that start alone. He's now down to 1.2 F4 on the season just through the few starts that he's made. It's like, what is this? What did you say? 6 starts? Yeah. 6 starts, and he's worth over 1 more, which is really good.
That's sick.
Yeah. That guy is for real. And then strikeouts, these guys, the premier strikeout guys for the month, and two of the ones pretty much in all of baseball in the AL. Strikeout leader is, of course, Shohei Ohtani, who has just added a sweeper and, more refined his sweeper and just added to the rest of his arsenal this season. He just gets better and better every single year. 44 strikeouts. And then the guy that is chasing the strikeout record is what it seems like. Spencer Strider's 57 in a month is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, both of these guys are super fun to watch. I think they're must-watch TV every single time they pitch. I mean, it's crazy that Spencer Strider can do this with just 2 pitches, but he's got that like Bryce Miller-esque fastball with a lot of rise, and his slider is really good as well. 44% CSW in the 97th percentile. He's got a 41.5% strikeout rate. He's just unstoppable. And I mean, Ohtani, yeah, you can't really say any more about him. It's just like every year he finds a way to get better, and he was already the best player of all time 2 years ago when he was a unanimous MVP, and he's one-upped himself every single year. And it's so fun to watch. And we're just so lucky to have him.
Spencer Strider needed 61 innings on the season to get to 100 strikeouts. 61 innings, and he has 100 Ks. No other starter in 130 years has done that since they've been pitching from 60 feet, which is ridiculous. He's one of the best he's one of the best strikeout pitchers ever. And it sucks because he had a chance. His first 30 starts, he has 262 strikeouts. That's only 6 off being the most of all time in the first 30 starts from an MLB career. He's second right behind Dwight Gooden. He's just special. And like you said, it's crazy. He's just doing it with 2 pitches. He throws fastball, throws that big wipeout slider, and that's pretty much it. Once he adds more, the sky's the limit. He feels like DeGrom light is what he feels like. Guy's just really good. I got my fantasy team. He's pretty cool. I like that guy. But yeah, I mean, both of those guys are really good. And talking about Ohtani, it's baffling that he is still getting better. It feels like if you took like a 99 overall and they start going into the 100 overalls, like in a video game, and it just makes no sense because that guy's he's better at everything. You could probably put him in any other sport and he'd be one of the best athletes in that too. He's just a complete freak. And then pitcher F4, 3 guys right here at the top of the AL. Framber Valdez, who has been one of the premier innings leaders in baseball for the last 3 years. Bryce Miller, podcast favorite, and then world's most handsome pitcher, Joe Ryan, not both, all 3 with 1.2 F4, and then Zach Gallen beating him out, 1.3 for the month.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about Fromber. I think he's been really interesting this year. The past couple of years, he was sort of a Toby, where he didn't really strike out
Mhm.
a lot of guys. He relied a lot on balls in play, but that was really good because he was like the best ground ball starting pitcher in all of baseball. And like you said, being a huge innings eater, it's like if you can throw 200 innings and get a lot of ground balls with the shift, like you're going to be really good. And then this year, also the concern was always like he just walked too many guys. If you're walking guys and allowing balls in play, there's going to be some outings or some innings where you get a little unlucky in terms of the balls in play, and you already got guys on base. Maybe you give up a home run or two, and then things can go downhill pretty fast, and it sort of reduces the ceiling of your whip. But this year, he's become more of a strikeout pitcher. He's up to 27%, which is a career high, and he's got a career low walk rate, and it's way down to 5%. And he's still getting the ground balls, and he's still throwing a ton of innings. He's fifth in baseball right now. So, I mean, he's like the complete package right now. He's never going to be like the biggest strikeout guy in baseball. But I mean, last year he had that like where he had that streak of quality starts, and it was just like everybody that had this many quality starts in a row won the Cy Young. He didn't win the Cy Young. There were too many good guys in the American League. I don't think he wins it this year, but he's improved across the board, and I think he's going to have an even better season than last year, which is crazy. His xFIP right now is 2.45, which is bonkers. And I think it's going to be, we're going to look back at the season that Fromber has, and we're going to be like, oh my God, I didn't even realize he was doing that well. And he had just one of the best seasons in the American League.
Absolutely. And a guy that I think deserves a lot of credit. He's sort of been given some, but I don't think he's really been given his flowers completely yet. It's Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan went from pretty much a de facto 4-5 starter last year with the Twins to I mean, if it weren't for Sonny Gray, he'd be the de facto ace of the Twins right now. And it's crazy because their rotation has been extremely good, and he's been just as good, if not better than Sonny Gray in a lot of ways. Up until last night was the first time he's really gotten hit hard at all, and it was against the Astros, and they've been kind of shelling every good pitcher, which it's wild. Joe Ryan is just really good. Right now, hold on, I'm trying to find the updated version of that, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to like the guy because he's really good and he's extremely handsome, but real good pitcher. I'm sure Sonny Gray loves him.
Yeah.
But
yep.
We can check in on the standings for all of the divisions, and then we'll talk about players of the month that we think. So let's go pull up these standings.
Sure. We can start in the American League East.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's above 500 in that division, so that's probably the most competitive division in baseball. I mean, the Rays were so good to start out the season, and they're still in first place, only by 4 games though, which is surprising. They've definitely slowed down a lot in the month of May, but they've still been really good, and I think this is going to be a really fun battle to watch throughout the year.
Absolutely. The Rays are really good, and it's sort of buoyed by the fact that they are the best team in all of baseball at their home stadium. They're 26-6 at Tropicana Field. They're miserable to play there. It feels like they never lose. They sort of looked human this week, but it's in an away series against the Cubs, and it's just because they just didn't score. Their pitching was still excellent, and the Rays have been so good because a lot of their players have gotten hurt. Their rotation has suffered some losses, and it's just they keep bringing up guys, and they keep fixing it, and they keep on going and keep on trucking. They're like, they have 40 wins. They're insane. Yeah.
69 win percentage.
Nice. And then the AL Central is a garbage fire. The top team in that division is the only team in that division that has a winning record, and it is the Minnesota Twins by 1 game. They are 28-27. The Tigers, surprisingly, the second best team, and the rest of that division would probably just rather not talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. The Twins have the same record as the last place team in the AL East in the Red Sox, so that tells you how things are going there. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, seems like every team is underperforming here. I think the Twins might run away with it, but I mean, how crazy would it be if the Tigers won this division while being just like, I mean, they're not good.
Like 82 and 82
yeah,
and
their
80.
Lineup is not good. I don't like their rotation. They got Erod
and nobody else.
And then they got Alex Lang, and it's like, wow.
Hey, Jason Foliar Razor is not going to be tolerated here.
Okay. Yeah. Well, sure. Yeah,
Everyone knows
it's
that
not
guy.
great. I think the Twins are going to end up running away with this sort of by a few games, but honestly, I feel like the Guardians are going to have like a second half run they just sneak in there. But yeah, this is probably uh, the worst division in baseball.
Oh yeah, and then the AL West. This one's sort of a dogfight. All four real teams in this division are above
Hey,
500. Um, we have the Rangers that are 35-20, and they're followed very closely behind by the Astros and Angels, who both have 32 wins and 30 wins respectively. Mariners hanging in there at 28-27. Their lineup just started really slow, but the Rangers. Their rotation, we talked about John Gray and Eovaldi being really good. Martin Perez has sort of returned to form a little bit. Once they get DeGrom back, I mean, that's arguably on form the best rotation in baseball. They have Heaney too, don't they? Forgot about him. He's been pretty decent. Their lineup has also been absolutely destroying baseballs. Josh Young's been good.
Yeah.
Adolis Garcia is good. Corey Seager has been very good, very quietly. And then we talked about Marcus Semien a gajillion times on this podcast. Jonah Heim too. I mean, Jonah Heim's has he exhausted his rookie eligibility because he could be
Yeah.
Let's say if not, he could be making a case for AL Rookie of the Year by a mile. But yeah, they've been very, very good. The Astros though sort of feel inevitable in this division, so the Rangers just sort of have to weather the storm.
I don't know. The Rangers has been really good this year. They have the best offense in baseball. You just named up the whole lineup. They're very interesting. I mean, we talked about them in the offseason. Boom or bust. Right now, they're booming. We'll see how long this can last. How long they can. Whoa! Just choked on air. How long they can hold on to the injuries. And then you got the worst team in baseball, the A's. They are 24.5 games out of first place. They're on pace to have the worst record of all time. They're going to on pace to have the worst run differential of all time. I'm going to a game this month, Jewish Heritage Night. See you there. It's really disappointing.
How expensive are your tickets, or do they pay you to go?
$10.
Dang. I don't even know if that'd be worth $10, Jake.
I know, right?
That's tough. Just remember, owner did this on purpose. What a guy. And then we can go talk about the National League so we don't complain about the A's having a shithead owner. The NL East has been sort of a hotly contested division too. It feels like most of the teams in this, apart from the Braves, have been bad, but a few are still hanging around. The Braves, of course, win the division again. Who could have saw it coming? They're 33-23.
I mean, they're worse than the A's.
I
mean, come on, man. The numbers speak for themselves.
That's right. So, I mean, every team that the Braves have beat now, because the A's beat them in a series, the A's are now, through the transitive property, better
the best team in the National League.
Yeah, the A's would be the best team in the National League. They
yes,
just
they
need
would.
to reallocate. But the Mets have sort of sputtered. The Marlins have been not great, but not bad. And then the Phillies have been a complete tire fire.
I mean, it's surprising to see the Marlins tied with the Mets right now. I mean, that pitching rotation is really good. And as long as you got Jorge Soler and Luis Arias leading that lineup there, once Jazz Chisholm gets back, I mean, that could be a really sneaky team. I would love to see them make some moves to supplement that offense just a little bit more. But I mean, at this point, they're in the running. So I'd love to see them make that push there. You do have the worst team in the National League tied for the Nationals are tied with the Rockies for the worst team in the National League. And I mean, it's expected. They don't have a good team.
Yeah, they are not ideal. And then going on to the NL Central, which is giving the AL Central a run for their money in terms of being the worst division in baseball. The Brewers are currently winning that division at 29-26. The Pirates have finally fallen off of their laurels. They are 28-27 after their really hot start. They've sort of been pretty bad, sort of like everyone thought the Pirates would be. The Reds, surprisingly, are actually 26-29. And then as of today, since the Cubs lost, the Cubs are the worst team in the division behind the Cardinals.
That's crazy. They have so much talent.
I know. Everyone thought the Cubs would be really good this year. They've been absolute garbage the last, pretty much the month of May. They've just been really, really bad. They can't win a series.
Rough. They need Bellinger back.
Yeah, they do. They actually will win the series against the Rays. They can't lose it now. They win 1-2 games against the Rays, but other than that,
Nice.
they've been pretty miserable.
Yeah, it's crazy how far the Pirates have fallen, and yet they're still just a game out of first place. I think this is, like you said, I mean, this is just AL Central. Whoever is the least
bad will win the
bad is
division.
going to win. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this division sucks really, really bad. And then the NL West, 2 teams fighting it out at the top. Dodgers are 34-23, but the Diamondbacks are 32-23, just a game back. Then the rest of the division has sort of been picking it up. The Rockies stink, of course, as always, but the Giants were the worst team in the division, I think, the last month's check-in. Sure. And now they're 500, chasing down.
Yeah, it's. I think this is going to be a really fun division to watch throughout the year. I think it's cool that the Dodgers and Diamondbacks are really close right now, but the Giants have been on fire in May. The Padres are a good team. When they got Machado and Tatis going at full blast, I think they're going to be a really tough team to stop in the latter half of the year. So I think this is going to be a really fun division as long as things stay tight right now. So it'll be fun to watch. But yeah, unfortunately, the Dodgers have the best record in the National League as always.
That sucks. Yeah. But player of the month, who do you think is going to be the player of the month?
Aaron Judge and Freddie Freeman.
Aaron Judge and Freddie Freeman. That was really hard. I don't know how we came up with that at the same time. But, dang.
Crazy.
I guess they're going to win players of the month. What pitcher of the month?
I think we got Eovaldi and Spencer Strider.
I think I would go with Eovaldi and Spencer Strider. Hey, look at that. Wow. Although I think Gallen is going to give Strider a run for his money again because Gallen is still very good. I think the strikeout numbers are just so astronomical that Spencer Strider's he's just gotta have it going for him. He's had one like sort of rough-ish start, but outside of that, I mean, he strikes out everybody faces.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's look at rookies of the month. Who do you have for AL and NL?
I think it's going to be Josh Young again. And then in the NL, I think it's going to be, wait, is Morel still a rookie? No, he's not. Shoot. No. I mean, probably Corbin Carroll. Who else?
You can maybe make an argument for Matt McLain.
Okay. Yeah. I just feel he hasn't played enough. And
probably,
I guess Corbin Carroll's fallen off. He's batted .256 this month, but I mean, he's got 6 steals and 5 home runs. I don't know. That one's a hard one to research because you have to be like, who are the rookies that we're playing?
Yeah, I'll go Josh Young and I'll go Matt McLain. We'll give Matt McLain his shine. And then we have one more to talk about relievers of the month. I think this one's also pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, I think it's Doval in the National League, but in the American League, I think it's going to be just running through them real quick. I think it'll be Felix Bautista.
Yeah, I think let's say Camilo Doval, Felix Bautista, and then I'm going to give Liam Hendriks his honorable mention just because he did come back last night. Of course, it's still in the month of May. He got his one appearance. But, of course, he beat cancer, and I think that's probably the biggest accomplishment.
Comeback player of the month.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest accomplishment you could ask for from a player at this point that's gone through what he's gone through. So I think it's going to be Bautista, but I'd like to throw Liam Hendriks' hat in the ring just for the warm and fuzzies side of that.
Sure.
Well, what else do we have to cover today, Jake?
We got one last thing, and it's meme time. It's time for LMAO Lamau baseball.
Run the memes.
Run the memes. All right, let me pull them up. We got some good ones. I think both Davis and I were big fans of this one. Bryce Elder just completely outpitching the underlying metrics. I mean, it's just like this is how Twitter is. You really just have the casuals who are like, what do you mean this guy's really good? His ERA is good. And then it's like everybody else that sort of knows the stats are like, no, he's really bad because he gives up a lot of hard contact and he clearly has poor estimators. I don't know. It's just like, I think only analytics nerds would think this one's funny.
His day will come.
Yes.
They
Yes.
will
Yes, it
come where
will.
everyone will find out that Bryce Elder is in fact not the greatest pitcher of all time.
A regression comes for everyone.
Yep, it showed
Yeah.
you.
But I think this is what his StatCast page looks like.
I'm pretty sure. The swag rate, I think, is a little high. I feel like that's
Tag
a little.
yourself.
Yeah, I feel. Oh God, my favorite is that boy nice. I like that one. He's in the 100 percentile in that boy nice.
I think personally I'm in the really high in the chill percentage, but I think the dog in him is really funny.
Yeah, X grit. X grit only doesn't fit.
That one's a real one. That's like
X,
an actual StatCast metric.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Who's the X grit leader of the year so far, Jake? Who do you think?
I don't know.
Perennial
You're catching
X
me
grit
off
leader.
guard. Perennial X grit, Whit Merrifield.
Yeah, Whit Merrifield. Chris Taylor.
That guy sucks.
Yeah, he does. No, he doesn't, Jake. No, he doesn't. He plays baseball. He plays baseball hard. He plays it the right way.
Yeah. We also got a nice, cute picture of Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, that's that picture.
He's looking really nice here.
I feel like this is a universal picture, like for any picture that gets shelled all the time.
Yeah, well, Trevor Bauer is the poster child for that.
This was Rich Hill against the Giants, and this is Lance Lynn tonight.
Yes, it was. Yeah, and this is Trevor Bauer in the Japanese minor leagues.
Yeah, he got smoked. I hate really that for him.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
And you got to explain this one to me. I do not get it.
Apparently, one of their commentators made a whole thing about buying a laptop or something during one of their broadcasts, and the Orioles lost, and they posted this as their post-game graphic. They also had one I couldn't find. Didn't send it to you, but they also had a Magic 8 Ball, and when they got smoked by the Rangers, like 12-3, and it said the thing that popped up on the Magic 8 Ball was post the final graphic. Like, will you post the final graphic? And it said no.
It's a good one. Yeah, and then one more Orioles meme. Oof. I think that's a good one. That's just a universal meme there. Yeah, that's Anthony Santander reacting to the terrible new Orioles City Connect jerseys. I think he originally said oof, and then he was just like, "Ooh, these are nice."
These guys cut my check.
Gotta be nice about it. Yeah, it's pretty rough. Yeah, pretty funny.
Have you seen the Orioles' whole deal with their City Connect jerseys now, making the whole deal about rolling up their sleeves and getting to work when they're wearing them? And they're like, it's so corny.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's so corny. But on that note, that's all we got. We're not doing a closer tonight. Go find one yourself. Go on Facebook. do the work yourself. We're not doing a closer tonight. But that's all we have for this episode of Free Baseball. It's the 62nd episode of our podcast that we do every single Wednesday-ish or whenever we feel like it and actually get around to doing it. As always, I am Davis Bird. You can follow me on my Twitter account at DVSBird. I post a lot of garbage and complain and post nerd stats about baseball whenever I get the opportunity to. Or you could follow somebody who has a Twitter account that's actually worth following, like Jay Crumpler, because he posts cool stuff and he posts articles on pitcherlist.com that will help you win your fantasy leagues. What else do you write for, Jay?
I write for pitcherlist.com and I write for baseballhq.com, and I haven't written for theathleteshub.org, but you know what?
Either.
We're the only ones putting out a podcast, so yeah, I think it's okay.
The pod boys.
Yes, we are. I do weekly articles at pitcherlist.com about relievers. I've got a new one coming up. What day is the 2nd? Is that the Friday? Yeah, I got an article coming out on the Friday looking at batters with changing plate discipline metrics. That'll be coming out on Friday. And I do 3 podcasts a week for them too. We got a bullpen one that comes out every Friday as well, and then the weekend editions of the First Pitch podcast, Pitcher List's daily podcasts, are hosted by yours truly.
Yeah, if you don't read all of those, you're a bozo. That's just how it works. Yeah, for real. All those articles are really sick, especially on Pitcher List. I don't know. I am not employed by Pitcher List. But I would like to say that Pitcher List is the only reason that I am remotely functioning in this fantasy baseball league.
It really helps. It is surprising how much just like reading an article a week or two a week, like really makes you so much of a better fantasy player.
I typically read like, one or two of the in-depth articles, but they also, if you don't want to read all the crazy articles, they do ranks. They do rankings of relievers. They do hitter lists. They do rankings of hitters. They do stuff for categories. Not so much stuff for like roto. I don't even know what that really is, but they do a lot of stuff for like categories fantasy. Nick Pollock points out like he does like streamer or like pitcher streamer rankings. Like every 2 days or whatever, and then
Every
updates it
day.
and change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Looking
updates it and
forward
changes
to
it.
2 days. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty sick. I look at that one all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just a great website. If you play fantasy baseball, you should be reading their stuff like daily. Honestly, it's really nice and they're super easy reads. And they're a bunch of cool guys over there. And there's some cool guys over at the athleteshub.org, which of course sponsor our show. And you should go over there and read some stuff. And it's not just stuff about baseball. Of course, we're a baseball podcast. I like other sports. Jake likes other sports, I think. But guys over there are more guys like us who are fans of their respective sports that they cover and write about. And it's more of that front where you're going to get things and real opinions from fans that are more or less like yourself and like us, which I really enjoy. And it makes everything that you read really digestible. It's like a conversation having with somebody instead of just being like, oh, yeah, here's a bunch of like mass media stuff from guys like Passan or Rosenthal, who are, of course, great. But if you want just something like just really casual to read and enjoyable, it's tough to find something like that. But you can find it at the Athletes Hub, which are really great. There's other podcasts like Deep Takes from Three, which I probably will do something for the NBA Finals. I don't know if they're going to or not, but if not, you should pick that up during the regular season. There's just great stuff for all sports. I know we've got articles that have come out in like the last couple of days for professional wrestling, soccer, like all sorts of stuff. Whatever you want to read, we've got it. So go check that out. On that note, I don't think I really have any other words to say other than goodbye. Thanks for watching.
Peace out.